about 1 minute, we'll go over to Trace. Trace, are you about ready for that? Trace,
When you are, I'm ready.
All right, we're gonna go to Tres Lennep in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and he's gonna sharpen something for us. We'd like to do some segments on tools. Well, a lot of turners don't understand how to sharpen them. Think you got to stand there and grind. If you're shaping a tool, that'll make sense. Trey's going to show you how to shape it and then sharpen it. Trace, you're up.
Okay, can you spotlight me? Or I guess I can spotlight myself if I can find it.
Yeah, I can't find you.
You're there, Trey.
Okay.
You're
I'm looking at you.
Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna cover it. Let me switch my camera. Okay. I'm gonna talk about a whole bunch of different ways of sharpening. Let's see, which camera am I on?
The end of the grinder.
I'm on this camera.
Yeah, we're looking at your grinder.
Let me switch over to that one. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to talk about different ways of sharpening, but I'm going to start real quickly with the ball gouge. So just walk through it quickly and then we'll get into more details. I'm going to stick it in, get the nose depth on it. I'm going to set this at the distance I need to and come in. I'm going to grind the wing. Grind the other wing, and then I'm gonna merge the two across the middle. And that's a standard method of doing the ball gouge. But what I want to do now, that's talking about the ball gouge. Let me talk about, that's a real quick thing on it, but let's go ahead and get this overhead. Okay. I want to talk about some different things getting to that point. Now, the most important thing on sharpening, by the way,
you're not on. Your picture
know.
isn't on.
Okay.
He's at the
I know what
whiteboard.
I'm on right here.
Ah,
Okay.
there you are.
Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about angles, sharpening angle. I'm going to talk about the angle on sharpening. You can put an angle like that on it. It's not going to hold the edge very long, but it'll be very, very sharp. And that's similar to what a scalpel would be. Put an angle like that on it, and it's going to hold the edge for a long time, but it's going to really be hard to cut into it. And the magical thing is, where do we go between these two? Carving book tells me to go from 15 degrees to 20 degrees for softwood, 20 to 25 for hardwoods. Kitchen knives. Show you 3 different knives that are kitchen type knives, and the edges, if we can see the edges on it. This is a chef's knife. It's fairly sharp pointed, but fairly sharp on it, but it's not quite as sharp as a Sansu knife is. It's more pointed on that one. Contrast to a cleaver, which is very blunt. This is made for cutting bone. This one cuts vegetables and soft materials. This is just a general knife, the kitchen knife. So on kitchen knives, they vary it depending on what you're cutting. So, and it makes a lot of difference of how well that edge holds up. Now, from what I understand, the magical number for what we're looking at, I probably can't draw it, is about 40 degrees. Around 40 degrees, plus or minus 5 degrees. So 35 to 45 degrees is about the magical number that we want for wood turning. It's durable enough to hold an edge, but it's still sharp enough to give you a good cut. what you have on a lot of these bowl gouges, and I'm not going to question on what it is. A lot of bowl gouges are sharpened to around 60 degrees, between 55 and 60 degrees. What that does on that gouge, when you do that, that's the bowl. By having that angle, this one is ground about 60, I can go around here and still continue to ride the bevel all the way to the bottom. I can ride the bevel here all the way to the bottom. I can ride the bevel here. Oh, wait a second, I got a problem. I'm hitting the edge of the bowl. Then I have to jump to another gouge that is sharpened steeper, such as something like this, to make it all the way across the bottom of the bowl. But about a 60-degree angle covers most of the turnings that most people do. And if you want one gouge that's going to do it all, it's somewhere around 55 and 60 degrees. It's not quite a sharper edge, which means you're going to get more tear out. But at this angle here, I can make the cuts all the way through on this. If I jump it to 40 degrees, this one's at 40. When I come down here, I'm hitting the edge of the bowl. I have to jump on bowl gouge. The flat one, I'm okay all the way down. This one here, I will have to jump to a bottom bowl gouge. So the 40-40 grind allows me to get the edges and the outside of a bowl very well. It gives me a better cut than the 60-degree grind does, but I have to use a different gouge across the bottom of almost every bowl I turn. So this is where most people fall under bowl turning. And let me turn something on. I got a pole. And what I'm asking here, and I'm not even sure how this pops up on your thing. What I'm asking is what grinds do most people use? It should pop up on your computer. I don't know whether it did or not, but did it pop up?
Mm-hmm.
Is it working?
Yes,
Yes.
it is, Trey.
Okay. And I'm just
Unfortunately,
okay.
unfortunately, my vote doesn't count. No, I'm the host. I don't get the vote.
You don't get the vote.
No, what is this, like Wagaman or what? Come on.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. You don't need to vote.
All right.
And I'll give everybody the results of that when we get through, of the different grinds that most people use on their bowls. On doing it. So
We can see the poll increasing numbers as
the
people
first
vote.
thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do this grind here using the Vari jig. Here's the Vari jig that One Way sells. I do recommend it. It's a good jig for sharpening. And what do I have that set to? Okay. Now, the question is, what angle do you set this to? I'll tell you what the difference is, what's actually going to happen on it. When I push this all the way up this way, all it's going to do is change the wing of the bowl, the angle on the wing of the bowl. When I have it all the way up this way, I will have a blunter angle.
You're not showing anything.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
it.
I'm not showing anything?
No. Keep going.
I see it.
I see it.
Okay.
I
Yep.
see.
Okay.
Looks good here.
I see
You have
it.
to
Okay.
move the, yeah. you have
When
to
I
move the
when I go
poll.
all the way this way, the angle's blunter. When I go down this way, it is
All I
sharper.
see is all I see is the page.
Well,
I see everything on mine. Looks great.
I'm looking at the feedback and I'm getting,
Am I good or do I have a problem?
I don't think we have
problem.
I can see you.
I can
Okay.
see
Good,
it.
Trace.
I think it's
Okay.
I can see
isolated.
it good.
Now, the angle that I'm gonna recommend that you go with, I've got 3 different angles that people that have been addressed. Raptor puts this angle on it, which from here to here is 26.5 degrees. The Ellsworth grind, here's an Ellsworth tool for grinding it directly. This angle, and I'm measuring from this point right here. Everybody measures this angle. The main thing is I'm measuring from the same point. From there to there is about 38 degrees. And then this one coming in the way Thompson recommends is about 40 degrees.
Okay.
I'm gonna recommend somebody starting out the one that Thompson recommends is pretty good. And I just line it up to that and lock it down. Now, once you got that angle that you're using on that, don't change it. Leave it that. Leave it there. You do not ever have to change that angle. I have underneath the bottom of my tool scribed some marks under it, which allows me to repeat to that angle that I want to get back to it. Where that's the Raptor, that's the Ellsworth, and that's the Thompson. But just lock it down. I recommend starting with the Thompson and just lock it down. The next question is how long do you stick the nose of the tool out? One way says 1 3/8 to 2 inch, with 1 3/4 inch being their recommended distance. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this is a little block gauge. That's 1 3/4 inch. It's wood on the back, so I'm not going to hurt any. I won't hurt the tip of the tool. I'm going to slip the tool into it and lock it down. Now, the next question is, how far do you set this back? Well, what this controls is your nose angle. And let's talk about, there's a bunch of ways of setting it. Raptor makes some jigs for doing it. Now, the Raptor jig, they give an angle on it, but that angle is only good if you use their particular angle on the jig. But show you roughly, this is set the way I want to leave it. Oh, well, we'll just do it. It is set by coming in like that on it. And flip to this other camera, see if it shows it.
Isn't that Raptor set up for a 2 inch instead of 1 3/4 inch?
I am not sure. It may be a 2 inch.
Yeah,
But the most important thing here of everything is consistency. You need to do it the same way each and every time.
And it really doesn't, if you get used to the 1 3/4, you don't need the 2. If you get used to the 2, you don't need the other one.
Correct.
The Raptor comes in and that sets your distance for using a Raptor. Another way of doing it come in with the tool, move it in, and to the tip of the tool, to that tip of the tool right in here is parallel. The other thing you can do with that too, to double check it,
There you go. Get out your Crayolas game.
I put a marker on it. I marked it. Then I slide it on there to see if that grind. Now I'm a little bit low. I can come in a little bit further, but you can see where it marked on that edge using a magic marker. That's 2 different ways. another way in here to do it, and let me find my jig. If I'm trying to go 4/7, which is a common number, if I'm trying to do a 4/7 on it, I cut a piece of wood that was 4 inches by 7 inches. Make sure I get it right. Okay.
You had it a
Now
second ago.
I removed this little notch from the center of, from the corner, because I don't need it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit here and eyeball. I'm eyeballing this line right here to the center of the wheel, and then I lock it in, and that's down 4 and out 7. You can do this at any setting you want, but what it will do is consistently repeat the distance you have out on the wheel. Another option, once you find the distance you want, mark it. Mark it on the slide. Then you can come back in there and repeat it. A third option, and it's one I've done and on doing it, is basically make a Raptor for yourself. Switch cameras. Overhead. Okay. So I've simply drawn out an 8-inch diameter circle. And I dropped down 4 and went out whatever. And I've decided this is the distance I want out on it. Now, I've already drawn this on here, but
Hold
on that
Trey.
same piece of paper, but on this piece of paper, you can sit there and draw it out. Now, there's one magical thing on it. Whatever you're doing and repeating it, draw a line from here to the center. And the reason why is you do not want this leg below that centerpiece. If you do, I did that. You ask me how I know I did that. But what happens when you do that, it gets stuck in there. This one here will lift straight out of the way. The other one, if it's down below this center point, it's stuck in there and you sort of have to push it out sideways. But when you got the setting you want, make a Raptor. Do it out. What I've done here is just make it out of PVC. And unfortunately, this one here, this is the one I said don't do. I said, okay, that's great. Well, I'll show you what happens when you try to set it to that. This bottom piece jams because you can't pick this up this way without it hitting that. This one here is above that, and it will just clear. It'll just clear when you use it for setting. But make your own Raptor. The numbers I found out with a 1 3/4 inch extension. Coming down 4 and then out at 40 degrees, instead of 7, I'm 5 3/4 inch. And I did this by drawing this and how this lines up on here. I drew the angles on the side, fit it up to the wheel. So at a 40-degree angle, I'm down 4, 5 3/4 out, 50-degree angle, it's 6 3/4, 60-degree angle, I go out about 7 inches. Now, so once you find out and align this to the way you want it, and you can do it by just aligning the tool, checking the angle and do it. The most important thing, again, I'm repeating, is repeatability. So make yourself a Raptor type jig that fits on it. This is one of the easiest ways to do it, not upsetting it, and set it to the angle that you want to set it to. And you will repeat that each and every time. Leave the wings locked in and repeat it, and that repeats it. So this is pretty close to where you're starting out on these dimensions. The other thing, a lot of people worry about this being 4 inches exactly down. It makes no difference if my wheel, my thing is pointing downwards. It makes no difference. It's still gonna grind exactly the same as if it was here or here or here. It doesn't make any difference. So don't worry about picking your rotation point up or down or whatever to make it parallel. It does not have to be parallel to the ground. If you catch what I'm saying. I know they make some jigs out there that adjust. They make some jigs out there that this part adjusts up and down and everything, so you can get it the exact thing that way. It makes no difference. It makes no difference as long as you have the angle, the length that you want on it to approach the wheel. And with the jig on there, as I said, it makes no difference. You can grind on this part of the wheel or this part of the wheel. It doesn't make any difference. So we'll put this back in. And this time I'll walk you back through slower on it. Okay. I'm gonna use the jig that I have, set my bullnose angle on it.
Can you pull back on the camera a little bit? There you go.
Yeah, because you need to see that other part of it too. Okay, yeah, there we are. I set that bullnose angle. Then I'm gonna set this distance. Now this one here, I don't have one that's gonna match it, so I'm gonna just set it by aligning it this way. And I'm actually not gonna grind it. To start with, on grinding this, the first thing you're gonna do with it on a new tool, and I'm not grinding this one up and I don't use this grind very. Grind this top surface. That'll give you a flat surface to allow you what to mate up to. Doing it on both sides, grinding it down, and then grinding the center of it. Personally, I prefer, and let me show you why. Okay, if I'm grinding this here, I get to a certain point, I'm in the way. I can't get all the way over here because I'm in the way. My personal preference on tools is to use tools that have, I can get all the way around. Use a tool and a tool handle separate, and then attach them back up after I ground. This is a lot easier to grind this way. While I'm here, grinder, comfortable height. Is very difficult to grind down here because you can't see to get to it. Another point, that is very dangerous to grind at that much of an angle pointing into the wheel. What can happen is that can grab it and be pulled into the wheel, especially stone wheels that will pull in there and bust that wheel and blow it up on you. So don't point it, don't get in so it's really flat on there. If you're doing the flat bowl gouges, the bottom gouges, if you're doing a bottom bowl gouge, I don't use this jig for it, but when you want that flat angle, don't do that because it's dangerous, because it can grab into the wheel. It's very dangerous. Don't do that.
Question, question. That bottom feeder is not sharpened on an elliptical grind, is it?
I sharpen everything on a platform.
Okay.
And yes, you can sharpen it on that grind, but I don't really recommend it because once you get that sharp of angle on it, it's unsafe because it's pointed into the wheel so much that if it grabs, you got a problem. Something's going to blow up.
Yeah, all mine, I've got two bottom feeders and they're just ran like a bowl gouge.
Yeah. So are there any questions on using this jig?
Can I say one thing, Trey?
Jump in,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah, I'm Mark Select. Anyway,
Yeah, Mark.
the most important thing to remember is that the Vari-Grind Jig does not make a profile. It only makes a parabolic curve. You have to personally draw the profile. When Trey mentioned that he sort of flips it over and goes onto the top, you have to draw either a straight line or a slight curve, right? But you have to do that with your eyeball, right? If you just flip the gouge back and forth, then you lose the point. You lose the point of the tool. You'll get too high wings, right? And you'll take out the center of the gouge. And if you do that, then you're subject to that bowl gouge catching. So as long as you profile that yourself, right, you may have to go back and forth, but don't just swing it from side to side because that jig is not going to make the profile. It's only you that can draw that top profile. And when you go to use your bowl gouge, if the inside bottom of that flute does not touch, right, the wood first, right, then that bowl gouge is subject to a catch. Just that simple.
I appreciate it, Mark. He's 100% right. When I get to the 40-40 grind, when I'll show that, I'm gonna show that next. I'm actually gonna grind that top profile and show you how that works.
Good.
I'll actually do it on that one. I'm not gonna do it on the tool I had. That's an Ellsworth grind and it's the way it came from the factory. And I've never touched, I don't use it. I don't use that grind whatsoever anymore. And I just happen to still have the gouge. And I didn't want to grind it up and just grind off steel, but I'll show you on the 40-40 grind exactly what I'm talking about. And I just posted the results. Everybody should be able to see the poll results.
Yeah, 55 looks like it won out.
Well, it looks like between 50 and 60 degrees won out.
Yep.
I'll take that as a range between 50 and 60 degrees seems to be the predominant. And we have about 18% of the group on a 40-40 grind.
And we had somebody say there was not a place to vote on that in the chat. Oh, yeah, there is. But we've closed out this poll. So we had 60 of 79%, 60%, oh boy, 75% of the folks in the meeting voted.
The way I'm looking at the poll numbers right now, and if you answered 40 or 40-40, that's 15%, or
Yeah.
15 out of 60.
Yep.
And there's 36 people out of 60 who are between 50 and 60 degrees.
Right.
Now, David Ellsworth's worksheet shows you 55 to 65 degrees. He's a little flexible, and he is a firm believer in a 247. And in fact, I have one of his worksheets. But I came back and checked the ones that I've been using, and I wasn't quite at the 247 with it on a 2-inch extension. So I shortened my extension to get where I was before and was very happy with the cut. And like Trey said earlier, numbers are numbers. How it works for you is how it works for you.
Yeah, the 4.7 is a starting point. Set it to whatever angle you want. If you want a 50-degree angle, slide it back and forth to whatever angle you want, and then set up that Raptor type tool because it fits in real easy for alignment. For the distance, it makes it very repeatable. So make one that you're going to use, stick with it. Once you have it forever. Just stick with it and be consistent.
Hey, you You didn't say
Grind-
this, but don't try to grind that curve on your grinder and that Raptor. Do not do that. The folks that make grinding wheels will love you if you do.
Trey, I got a question for you.
Yes, yes.
The difference between a 3/8 fingernail bowl gouge and a 1/2 inch gouge, do you take the distance away from the jig out instead of 1 3/4 inches, or would it be larger on a larger diameter?
It's
Or
the
does it
same.
matter?
It doesn't matter. You just, I repeat the same thing. If it makes any difference, it's a matter of just a degree or two and you'll never know the difference.
Okay.
Now, Stuart Batty gave us a thing. He went to help a professional bull turning company in the States. And they were using the, about a 60-degree angle, 55, 60-degree angle on their bull gouges. And he shifted them to 40. Now, this is where it emphasized, stick with one thing that you're using. These professional turners for 2 days blew up bowls left and right. Every time they were doing, they cut right through the bottom of them, every one of them when they went to 40-degree grind. After a couple days, they stopped doing that and their production jumped a lot higher because they reduced the sanding. Because it has a sharper angle on it and cuts a smoother cut. But the main thing I'm pointing here is repeat and do the same thing each and every time, continuously do, and you have muscle memory of how you're turning it. So use the same grind, be consistent. Set up a jig that's going to line up to your thing, similar to what I just did on the Raptor. Cut a piece of plastic. That was just a piece of acrylic plastic. Set it up and make it, and they'll set your wheel out. You can mark on it how far you go. Get something to measure the bull nose angle and leave the wing to this the same. Don't move it, lock it down, leave it where it is. Don't move it. You don't need to move it. As a Ellsworth comes fixed. This is adjustable, but you do not need to move it. Just leave it where it is. And I sort of recommend the angle that, that Thompson was using here. And I think I'll give you that angle again and you can measure it and repeat it. I sort of recommend that as a starting point or a point for anybody to start with. But once you set it and start using it, leave it the same. There's not a significant difference on the wing of how much the difference is on, I measured the differences and it was not significant. It may have been 15 degrees all the way from one end to the other end difference. So it's not a lot of difference. Very, very minimal difference on the wing.
A minute ago, you said your muscle memory when you're sharpening it. We got to add to that the muscle memory when you're using it.
I meant your muscle memory when you're using it on the gouge, not sharpening it.
When you're using it, you learn how that edge cuts.
Yep, and if you change your grind, then you change the dynamics of that muscle memory. You have to relearn it a little bit.
Yes, that is very, very true. So the main point of this is be consistent.
Yeah, I noticed something interesting about the Vari-Grind thing you were showing there, the one-way tool, the jig there, is that
Yes.
it doesn't go straight out. I mean, I use the True Grind system, which is similar, but I use it for sharpening my skews and everything, and I really like that it, it goes all the way up, so I can get a parallel angle on it because I can sharpen my skews with it really well.
You're talking about it doesn't slide out far enough?
You know what? Let me let me find some scrap.
It slides way, way out.
No, what I mean is it doesn't go all the way up, so it's horizontal.
The jig, not the
The
bar.
arm. So.
Oh, okay.
on-
Yes. Okay. Yes.
On mine, my arm goes. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it goes straight out like that. And
Oh,
yours
hold
doesn't.
on, hold on, hold
Oh,
on.
you're not
hold on.
spotlighted.
I can spotlight myself. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Go ahead, Matt, you're up. Uh-oh.
You're up and frozen.
Yep.
Okay, so my arm goes straight. My internet connection is unstable.
You're on good and solid right now.
Okay, anyway, but I it was a curious difference to see, looking at what, I know how mine does, because then I can sharpen my skews and my parting tools really well. And it was curious to see that yours doesn't go all the way up like that. So just an observation, that's all.
Different systems.
Yep.
And your rotational point's totally different too, though. Isn't
You're
it?
right, it is. You're right, it is. I had to think about that a minute.
When you change
Right.
tools, you're gonna change grinds.
Okay, okay. So that talks about the Vari-Grind. So,
Hey, Trey, can I throw something on you?
sure,
All right, what you're looking at right now is that adjustable tube going into that holder. One of our guys from Texas sent me a photograph. He drilled a hole right there on that top surface of that tube. And he puts a pin clean through that hole on both sides. And he knows that that pin is for that gouge and that grind. You marked it with a pencil. He said he kept screwing it up because it kept going shorter and shorter and shorter. So he put that pin in there, and that makes him more consistent. And when he needs to move to a different grind, he pulls the pin out, puts it in the other hole, and moves it in.
that's a good idea.
But that will only work if you have a CBN wheel. If you
Oh,
have
yeah.
because the diameter does not change on that. If your diameter on the wheel, on a stone wheel changes, then you can't use that pin.
Correct. We interrupted you, Trace. Can you?
No,
go
no, no,
back?
no, no, that's good because those conversations those are good conversations to jump in here on doing it. I talked about 6 different ways of doing it. I think the Raptor copy, a Raptor type tool, I think was probably the easiest way to do it. Because it's easy to put it in and set it to it. No matter whether it's a stone wheel or otherwise, it'll still adjust. So,
Correct.
and once you get the angle that you're using, you can stick with it.
I wonder how many times tonight we can say consistency counts.
So let's look at the 40-40 grind.
Now you're gonna mess with us.
Okay. Now this platform is set, and I'm using this to set it with, but it's not set at 40. Let me get an adjuster.
I got it, just looks just like that.
Yeah, I do too, Eddie.
It's a popular item.
Yeah,
The adjuster?
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got the one upstairs is I should have brought it down. I don't know what I'm doing. This thing is, something is moving on me. Okay. I don't know why that's sliding in all the time on me. Slide this out some. Okay.
If you close in on that camera, you would see that it's face to face, not point to point, face to face.
Yep. So what I'm trying to do is align this face up to that edge there. I'm getting 40 degrees on it. That sets a 40-degree angle.
You want to ask me
Now-
how I know it's not point to point?
You got one. I also have,
I got one without the instructions.
I also have 40 degrees marked on the side here. That gives me something to go back to. Now, the
Now,
first
is
thing
it-
I'm gonna do, I'm
That
doing
40
is-
degrees, wait, that 40 degrees is made between those two marks, not off the wheel.
now, I just ground a flat on the top of that. Now, that's what you want to do. Even if you're using the jig, that other jig, and you're starting out, you want to grind that thing on the top of it. Because what that does is that gives you a point to grind to. And the ideal thing is I'm gonna grind that off of it all the way around. So platform's 40 degrees on the side. I would get my real fine wheel on this,
Folks, his electronic mic is cutting up because of
but I
the
tell you what,
noise.
let me jump this to the other side. And I'm doing that because that wheel is so fine.
All right, jump cameras, please. Okay,
Yeah, this wheel is a fine wheel. Now, one thing I'm doing, what I have parallel to my platform is this. Not straight up and down like that, but I have this angle here parallel to my platform. 40 degrees, that face is in there. And if you notice what I've done here, I'm grinding towards this, I'm grinding away this little flat edge here. It's almost all gone on this side and on that side. I am not hollowed out this way. I'm either flat or domed up this way.
when Trey finishes sharpening this, he's going to answer a technical question one of our members asked us. Explain a 40-40. What does it mean? We'll wait for him to sharpen this and then he'll handle that for us. But as you can see, his wheel is set at 40 and his guidelines are set at 40.
Okay. Now I've removed these flats from the sides. So that's got my outside shape. Now I need to do the tip of it. And all I'm gonna tip on it, I'm just gonna rotate it around.
If you're wondering, folks, that is a low-speed Rake grinder, not variable speed. It's an 8-inch bench-type grinder.
Okay, now I've got it all the way around. Now to resharpen this, I'll show you how I resharpen it. what I did was totally start from scratch and
You're right
sharpen.
at the you're right at the camera. Come back to you. Come back to you with the tip.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I've totally started from scratch and done it. Now, all I'm going to do is get one side of it, one edge, the other side, and blend it.
Ray,
And that's the 40-40 grind.
Ray. When you were sharpening that point, your hand was covering the whole thing and we couldn't see the movement of the tool. Will you explain that, please?
Okay. The what was?
Your hand was in the way and we could not see how you were moving that tool when you were sharpening the point.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do another pass on it. On the point, in fact, most of the time after practice, you can come in here and make that pass just like that. That single pass is all it takes to dress it.
So you were moving the tool from one 40-degree line through the middle all the way to the other 40-degree line. That was the point I was trying to make.
That is correct. Now, the thing that happens on this is all I did is instead of, I'll get it back where I have a body instead of a thing. What I did, I used the platform instead of the jig. The jig holds you an angle, the platform holds my angle. It does the same thing. If you're using the jig, these side angles here on there, you have to manually do those. You have to watch it as you're doing it and manually do those side angles. The jig does not do it for you. All the jig does is hold the angle to the grinding wheel. You can make it sweep way back or you can sweep it very little. But all the jig does is hold the angle to the shunt. And this platform's doing exactly the same thing. So this is really not much harder to grind doing it that way than it is using the jig on doing it.
Trace, Sue has asked, what gouge are you grinding it on?
This is a Thompson gouge, and I believe it's a 5/8
Deep fluted?
Thompson gouge. What? It's a standard bowl gouge. It's a standard V-shaped or elliptical bowl gouge.
Thank you.
And also Joe asked what grit wheel you're using. You said you went to a little bit heavier wheel.
I think I jumped to a 80 grit instead of a 120 or 220, I mean. And I did that because the other wheel would have ground it, but it would take me a whole lot longer to get to it. And I was realizing I was reshaping the tool to match this, the grind that I wanted to show you how to, start from scratch on and do it.
Now, when you're sharpening in your shop, you're turning and you walk over, you can be on a higher grit wheel?
I'm on a 600 grit wheel upstairs.
Okay. Because all you're doing is sharpening.
Yeah, it's a single pass. I'm really just rehoning it almost. It's a single pass all the way across.
Okay.
Now, the other thing it's very common to do, and I have not done it on this one, is to put a relief angle back up underneath it. And I'll show you how to do that. It's okay, let me switch cameras.
And catch what he called it, folks. He called it a relief angle.
Okay. And to do that, simply come up like this.
Trey, can we get you to color that with your mark slot? So
Do what?
Can you color that grind, that cut, that tip with your mark slot and then do that one more time? So
Sure.
some monitors won't show the detail. I'm flipping mine over to a big screen TV and I can see the detail. And folks, you have to follow this. The detail is what makes it work, and he'll explain the reason why, but watch the detail.
Okay, I'm simply writing at a higher point on here. And what I have here, and we can still see the marker because it wasn't a very good marker.
It was okay.
See if
Go
I can
back further away
get
from the
back in there.
camera.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, what I've done is I have ground this bottom section here. My original grind. See if this will mark it better. What the problem is the tool's hot and it won't take the marker. The tool is too hot to take the marker on it. But I've ground this bottom section back here. And my bevel, the bevel that I ride on is right here. And actually you don't need a bevel any more than about a 1/16 of an inch. Between an 1/8 and a 1/16 of an inch bevel. But this just gives it relief angle on the back, so I'm not riding that against the edge of the bowl when I'm doing it. So I'm only riding on this bevel from here to here.
So you can actually turn a sharper corner on the inside.
Yes, sharper on the inside, but I don't cut to any of that. Now, what it actually does is when I come back here and resharpen this, I have less steel to remove and it's easier to do. It's quicker to do and everything because I have less steel to remove. I'm not removing all the way around just on the tip anymore, so. Any other questions on 40/40 grind?
The person that asked what if we could describe it better, hopefully when you were grinding, the 40/40 is self-explanatory. You're 40 degrees on the tip and you're swinging 40 overall from side to side. That is 40/40.
Now, one advantage on the 40/40 grind, and other grinds don't get to that. One significant advantage is that the tip of the tool cuts like a skew. The wing of the tool peels. Now, when the wing is peeling, it peels behind the cut. It's not in front of the cut, it peels behind the cut. And with it being behind the cut, I can have a big peel come off of my bowl, but I'm still have a skew cut right here at the tip. So what enters the wood is just that tip right here at the very, very tip. And the wing is what peels the wood coming off from the side. So my cut, whether I take a 1/8 of an inch cut or 3/8 of an inch cut, I still get the same cut because the tip of the tool is what's doing the cutting. The wing, all it does is peel. It's just a peeling cut and it peels after I've made the initial cut. It's not far behind it. It's probably a 32nd to a 64th of an inch behind where the initial cut is, but it's still behind it. And since it's behind it, it does not affect the surface of the bowl you're turning.
Now, new turners would understand that if you do this grind, it's not a plow. You can't go dead into the material like some folks believe you can, and there's YouTubes out there showing it going. You have to roll this up on the side and go in as a slicing cut, correct?
You go in, when I first start into the cut, I start in with the flue vertical and then roll it to the side as I continue into the cut. If I have punky wood, I'll keep it more vertical because that's giving me a more of a slice on the front down to 45 degrees, it's going to be a little less slice on the front. So it's usually between 45 and vertical. When you first go in vertical, rotate it in there and do it. Now, since I have 40 degrees here, here, and here, when I'm making the cut, and I'll have to show that later because I'm not set up to turn anything, I can simply rotate the tool, and I never change the bevel angle on the side of the piece that I'm cutting on. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it's like the outside of a quarter. It's all the same.
Okay. I'm cutting here and I'm riding
Pick
the
up,
bevel.
pick up.
I'm riding the bevel. I can simply rotate the tool and I'm still on that same 40-degree bevel by simply rotating it. If I take the other gouge, to keep riding the bevel as you rotate the tool, you have to swing the handle of the tool to continue riding that bevel. On the 40-40 grind, all I have to do is rotate the tool and I stay on the bevel the whole time. It doesn't make any difference. I'm staying on the bevel by just rotating the tool and I'm still staying on that 40-degree bevel since it's the same all the way around. On the other grinds, you have to swing the tool handle to continue to stay on that bevel while you're making the cut. If you rotate the tool.
Which means more muscle memory, which doesn't work for some folks.
Is it more aggressive as you open up the flute?
No, it's really not much difference.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be because, as you say, you stay on that 40 degrees all the way around.
You're staying on the 40 degrees all the way around. What it will do is it'll peel more wood off of it. And that's it. And I say, when you get into punky wood, put it more vertical, drop it, 80 degrees and make the cut at 80 degrees and it'll cut through that punky wood without tear out as bad. And then you can change it to whatever setting. Usually about 45 is what you wind up on as a standard cut. But go in vertical, it doesn't skip on you, and then you can follow around on doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Stuart Batty has some really good videos out there on some of it. And I'll get the link and send it to Eddie or something. Webmaster and put out the free videos.
Yeah, you can send it on to David at our webmaster. And
yeah, it's through another company. It starts with a V. I can't remember the full name on it.
Vimeo.
Vimeo. It's in Vimeo.
Okay.
Is where his videos are. If they're not in YouTube, it's in Vimeo. Okay.
Trey, can I say something?
Sure.
Number one, congratulations on a great presentation. And I think the most important thing that you said, and I tried to reiterate earlier, was that you always push the cut line with the point of the tool. You never use the side of the tool, right?
Yep.
And as long as you push it, right, and never use your left hand, you never push the gouge sideways. As long as you push it down the handle, put the point, drive the cut line with the point, then the curvature of the tool will lift and curl the wood out of the way. It'll be a smooth, clean cut. And men and women just have to back off of this two-handed bowl gouge crap, right? Because, right, if you want to learn to use a bowl gouge, you only use one hand, take a tiny cut, and you push the cut line with the point all the way to the end.
And
you'll make beautiful.
Your left hand will screw you up every time.
Well, anyway, thank you for a great, all your technical knowledge and your great presentation.
And when I learned to use this gouge, that's all I held it with, right there, holding it down. And it's just to hold it down.
That's it.
If you put your hand on it, you're gonna put pressure backwards on it or pull it off the cut. If you put pressure backwards on it, you start getting vibration and bouncing and all that stuff on it, and it's gonna be even worse.
Yeah, when I teach people to use the bowl gouge, make a final cut, I always make them put their left hand in the back pocket and they make a one-handed cut.
I just put pressure down on the top of it. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it was good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. I got a couple more gouges to look at while we're doing this. Well, Well, we got our bowl gouges covered. Spindle gouge, you can use similar to the bowl gouge and just stick, there's several options on doing that. You can use this same,
You're out of camera.
and let me zoom back out. Out. You can use this same jig for a spindle gouge. Just move this further in, which will change your angle. You also have the option on a spindle gouge to extend the tool further out instead of 1 3/4 inch, extend it further out. And another thing I did at one time, and I don't have it handy here, I made a little jig that fit right here on the bottom. I made a little jig that fit in the bottom that changed my rotation point and moved it up 1 1/8 and forward about 1/8 inch, and kept the same thing when I did spindle gouges. What it did, it changed my angle for about 10 degrees different than the bowl gouge. It was an easy way of doing that. The other thing I've done on spindle gouges, this is how I currently sharpen spindle gouges, and Mark is online, so this is his grind. I generally do most of this on a sander, on a belt sander. I've got a 1 inch belt sander upstairs and a 2 inch belt sander down here, and I'll do most of it on that. You can do it on the wheel and follow back around on it. It has a slight, and Mark, correct me if I'm correct, slight contour here, and it steeps way, way out, very pointed on the end.
Convex, you just make it convex on the back instead of concave.
Yep. Yeah, that, well, it's curved that way. It's convex. If you can, here, let me zoom in. It's easier to see it zoomed.
There you go.
So there's the bottom of it, and it's curved this way
Right.
with a pretty heavy sweep on it. And this is a great grind for doing any type of finial type work. It is fabulous on that.
Move the tip over on the tool rest tray. It'll show up a whole lot better.
What?
Right there.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. And it has a convex curve across here. And you can grind it with just grinding it this way on the wheel. You can just grind sideways on the wheel and do that. You can come in this way.
Your camera isn't on it.
You're out of camera again, sir.
There you go. That should do it.
Okay. And you can grind it that way on doing it. Sorry, keep correcting me when I'm not on where I should be with the camera.
If you've been to one of Mark Slay's workshops, that's what Mark Slay does by hand. He'll reshape that thing for you when you first get there because you came in with it wrong.
And I don't know where you can, I'm off camera there, but I will put it on this belt sander and use my belt sander to sand it with on the flappy part of the sander, which helps to give me that contour and keep that contour on it. Okay. Let's grab another gouge. Just had it here, just saw it. Oh, here it is.
Change camera, sir.
And we'll jump to. Okay. This is a spindle roughing gouge. Now, I know some people put the wings back. The traditional little roughing gouge. Used to be called roughing gouge. These were straight for a reason. When you're cutting a table leg, you have a square section and a round section. Well, that allows you to come in on the square section and get a corner right on there with it being round into the middle. If it swings back, you cannot make that cut. I know most of us aren't doing that, but that's what it's intended for. And when you sharpen it, I again have a 40-degree grind on it. Hold your finger down here on this side, come straight in, rotate around, and finger down on the other side. And that's it.
You know,
Flat
folks, that's
down-
what you said. You are sharpening, not shaping. Sharpening this.
I'm sharpening, I'm not reshaping this. My thumb is holding it down flat here. I rotate it around. My thumb on the other side holds it down flat on the other side. And that reshapes that back in. And I'm doing a 40-degree grind is what I'm using on it. But that's a spindle roughing gouge.
Sue has asked, what angle do you grind the spindle gouge if you measured that angle?
Mark Soleil's, I'm not sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a convex grind. You make it as razor thin as possible if you want to do fine detail work.
Yep. On a standard spindle gouge, I would do 40 degrees, between 40 and 50, but 40 degrees is what I'd recommend. Beading parting tool. Piece of square stock. I'm using 40 degrees. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm using 20 degrees on that one. Let me reset, but I'm gonna reset by simply swapping.
He's got one of those square adjusting tools also, besides a round one.
I know. They come in all shapes and sizes. And all I'm gonna do is that's it. And that's a beading parting tool. That's all it takes. Standard parting tool, I do the exact same thing. It's no different. I have a parting tool here? No. Bedan, again, it's real hard. And I'll just hold it up to match this angle. It's just straight in, that's it. It's a Bedan. This is a French style Bedan, I think that's tapered on it.
Yeah.
And it's used, the Bedan's used, we think of it backwards, but the Bedan's used with the flat side down and the contour on the top of it.
Because it's a slicer.
I'll have one. This one I have sitting here, where'd it go?
Hey, Ronnie, take note. See, his shop looks like my shop. See that?
I see that, Eddie, but I ain't going there.
All right.
Looks about like mine too.
Makes me feeling really good.
Sounds
Hey.
like we all use the same organizational technique.
No, that's just a background that I imposed on it.
Oh, green screen. All right.
Not buying it. Not
green
buying
screen
it.
background.
Not buying it.
That would be organized chaos.
It's in alphabetical order.
I've never seen anybody move things around on their background.
It's a good one. It's one of the better ones.
High-tech green screen there.
You know, you
You
gotta
can get that with StreamX, Stream FX. You can do that with in front and behind.
okay. Now, on a Skew, reshift camera because I moved to the other thing.
All we saw was the top of your head. I don't know what you were doing.
I was simply adjusting this wheel so it aligned to the Skew angle on it.
Oh, okay.
And on the Skew, this is how I sharpen my Skews. I have a flat part, a straight part, and a curved part on the top third. And Skew is simply going to be I didn't align that very well. No.
Yeah.
And that's how I sharpen the Skew. Now, when I do sharpen it, but most of the time, I'm gonna hand hone the Skew most of the time. And what I'll do is I'll put it down on a surface. I don't like doing it in the air. I like putting the chisel down on the surface or the wheel down on the surface. I shouldn't be doing it with the wheel running, but then and I'll do that for my Skew to make sure and bring that edge up real sharp. Let's see if there's any tools I missed.
Got a question, Trey.
Yes.
Convex, concave, flat on the Skew bevel. See any difference in it?
I'm using concave. I'm taking it off the wheel and doing it from that.
Mhm.
I've got a few that are convex, but I use the concave is what I use across the board.
But no
And it's
particular use,
Yeah,
like for the concave or the flat, you know, controversy about that amongst some people. I know I learned it from Alan Lacer, and he goes the concave and then sharpens it like you do.
yeah, and this is well, I got this from Alan. He actually sharpened it the first time, but it's the straight and then the curve at the top
Yes.
is what it is. And then I hand hone everything. The other thing you need to do on the Skew, if it's not that way, the bottom part needs to be rounded.
Correct.
And I do recommending knocking the edge off the top. So when you come in this way, it doesn't bite into your tool rest. My tool rests have hardened surfaces on the top, so it's not that big a deal, but on most tool rests, if it bites in, you can't do anything with it, and it locks in on the tool rest and won't slide. So you may want to just knock this edge off a little bit on this top. Bottom should be rounded though. I don't recommend the oval skews. I think they're harder to sharpen, harder to use personally, but that's personal preference.
Concave bevel on the Skew lets you get it into cracks and things and do deep grooves. Convex bevel will not get will keep the edge from contacting the wood.
True.
And the concave will teach you how to work that bevel. There's no gimme. You need to work that bevel.
Yep.
And when you're honing it and you have the concave thing on, you're writing, when you're doing this, okay, it's writing both sides of it when you're doing it. So you're honing it, so it's rubbing on this surface and this surface at the same time. So when you're honing it, you're riding both surfaces. So you have a surface that you're riding it to when you're honing it.
Yep, and you can tell if you're doing it right because the edges of both get silvery.
Yeah, and see how that's rocking? You go between the center point on the rock. On it. Okay, did I leave out any tools that I didn't cover from last time? I probably have a better view this time on this too. I'm not going to grind it, and I just grabbed a bigger bit. If you're sharpening a drill bit, that's straight across. That goes straight across your wheel at the angle at right here where it's riding on it. So you straight across like that. You rotate and you push up when you're doing it. So it's straight in there, rotate and push up. Okay, do it. Straight in, push up. Horizontal, straight in, push up. And that grinds that's how you grind a standard thing. And I picked the big one so it's easier to see. And what you do, this is grinding the front edge. And when you push in and rotate, you're putting a relief angle on this backside. And that relief angle on the backside allows the front edge to cut without the back rubbing on it, preventing you from making the cut. So, but I thought I'd grab a bigger one because it's easier to see than the smaller one I had last week.
Thank you.
I got one other. I forgot. This is a sort of neat little jig. It allows you to put your scrapers onto it and sharpen them. Now these are sharpened probably about 80-degree angle on it. But it allows you to put, it's a tool that Sorby makes to be able to hold it, and it's pretty neat for sharpening that. The other scraper I have is a negative rake scraper. And I'm checking my angle on this one because, yep. And it is strictly, and that's it. Well, not to the edge, but it'll be to the edge upstairs. But that will put a burr on the top of it. And you cut it that way with the burr on the top. The one upstairs is set at exactly 20 degrees and it'll repeat the same angle across it. So upstairs is about 20 degrees. That gives me about a 40-degree included angle here. And all my scrapers I do the exact same way. They're all done that way. This is a Thompson tool, and it's done the exact same way. And I'll scrape on this side here. I've got a burr on that side that I just put on that. It's negative rake because it goes back in from the other top. That burr doesn't last real long, but that burr will give you a nice clean cut on that edge.
I've heard people say, well, why is it, is literally burr a good thing? Think about what that tool is going to do. That tool is going to scrape to your finish.
Now, can anybody think of any of the turning tools I missed? I have taken some of the carbide tools. I have a jig that holds some little carbide cutters and it'll spin them. And I've held that up to the wheel and resharpened on that. I've used a hand hone and resharpened some of the carbide cutters with that. They can be resharpened just using diamond or some CBN. I do it lightly on CBN because I don't want to tear the CBN wheel up, but it still will cut it.
Good job.
Any other questions for Trace?
Hey, would you post a picture of the Vari-Grind Jig angles
give it to Dave and he'll post it on the website?
Are the angles? Okay, yeah, on that angle, okay, I'll let him,
The
I'll give
sketch.
him there, yes.
Thank you.
The magic, there's one magic angle I use and that's it.
A lot of accolades popping up for Trace tonight. He really covered it, soup to nuts. If you have a particular item that we didn't cover tonight, something you go out in your shop and find that you love to learn how to touch up, this is a place to ask. We'll find somebody, maybe not as good as Trace. We'll find somebody to answer the question for you and give you a hand. Sharp tools are safer tools. It's not the way your mama told you. It's the sharper the tool, the easier you work, the better your cut, the better your finish. It's all in your positive. So let's work with that when you get to the shop. Any other questions for Trace tonight?
Hang on a second. What am I looking at?
We'll see your shirt.
I know, but it should, oh, sorry. I'm jumping from the video on the camera to the black magic box. Okay. Here's the angle that you're dealing with. What I've done is I've measured from this point right here, and which is the intersection of the face of it and the tool. And I measured back this way on it. So this included angle, and it happens to be 40 degrees. It has nothing to do with the 40-40 grind, absolutely nothing. Ellsworth is using 38 degrees. If you go to Raptor, they're measuring it from, they measure it from this rotation point like that. But the problem is that point varies on some of the different jigs. So I measure it from this point here. And you could just draw a 40-degree angle, lay your tool out on there and slide it to match it.
And it must be 20 different versions of that jig out on the market. So these dimensions may not work, but the angles, see where he picked this point?
Okay.
From tool at jig to tip. That's where he
Okay,
picked his points.
my angle is coming from this point here at 40 degrees and just slide that over to a 40-degree swing and tighten it down. And it won't make any, and I guess another difference is probably how long that distance is if some jigs are different, but and I haven't even looked at that, but
that would create a little,
Ellsworth is pretty close to the same length.
yeah.
He has almost exact same length on that.
All right. Any
So,
other
yeah,
questions for,
that would vary a little bit.
any other questions for Trace tonight? I gotta say it before anybody else does, fantastic. This is what we come here for.
Absolutely great. Thank you.
Right.
I think that's one of the best explanations I've heard yet.
Yeah, great job.
It was
Fantastic.
It was fantastic.
Great
Frank.
job, yeah.
I appreciate the
Great job.
accolades.
And-
Nice job.
And you have to consider, folks, he's a member